Today's episode is brought to you by the book Everyone is a Sinner But Me, available now at Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. Pre-recorded from Volpes Studios, it's the MCS1 show featuring Lord Carrasco. And now your host, MCS1.
Welcome to another exciting edition of the MCS1 show. I'm MCS1, and once again, I am joined with Lord Carrasco.
I'm honored.
I'm happy to have you here. So, Lord Carrasco, we had you on a while ago. We discussed the Happy Valley housing, how it's different with the people here that you deal with rather than what you've dealt with in Salt Lake and Los Angeles. And today I want to talk to you about something very specific to Happy Valley. This is, and this kind of happens everywhere, but in Happy Valley, I've noticed there's like larger concentration of this, and this is called helicopter parents.
Oh, good grief.
And, and this is something like I've dealt with because I worked in housing for a while, particularly student housing. I was an RA throughout college and community college, and then through when I finished up my university studies, and I worked primarily in student housing during that time, and so I've dealt with these helicopter parents. But oddly enough, when I worked in community college, I never once dealt with a helicopter parent ever. The only thing the closest thing that I can think of is on move-in day. Some parents came with their kids to help move their stuff in. That was it.
You're lucky.
I know.
You're so lucky.
Well, that was then. This is now is sure.
Wow.
But yeah, that's the only thing I had. And I even had one mom approach me and she said, "Hey, you're gonna be my son's RA, right?" And I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "I'm just gonna warn you, he's gonna be bad. I wish you the
Oh,
best.
wow.
I wish you the best of luck." And you know what? She was right. He was terrible.
Oh, man.
His whole apartment was like the problem apartment. But she even fired off a warning shot and let me know. But I was always busting those kids for like alcohol and stuff like that. But I didn't really encounter these quote helicopter parents until I came here to Utah. Particularly, Happy Valley.
Yeah,
area.
I'd never even heard of the term before till I came to Happy Valley. I'd never heard of that term until somebody told me what it meant. And I was like, what? Are you serious? And it makes total sense, that the helicopter parents, they just hover. You know how helicopters hover? They just hover right over their kids.
Oh yeah.
And just make sure that nothing harms Junior, nothing happens to them. And oh man, it is the bane of my existence.
So this is from the Urban Dictionary, the ultimate source of knowledge, at least on this show.
The Urban Dictionary, the ultimate source of knowledge, at least on this show.
This is the top definition of helicopter parent. I'm actually going to read the top two definitions. Helicopter parent, the bane of the dean existence.
That's what it is.
The parent who hovers and flaps his wings while their kid lives in his shadow. Particularly prevalent at high-priced colleges where parents feel obligated or entitled to intervene on issues down to the candle power of the light bulbs. Second definition, helicopter parents. Parents that hover over their children, hawkishly helping them face college learning scenario. It is debated whether or not that parents that hover are good or bad for their child's overall development. I'm going to go with bad on this side of the debate for sure. But here's a definition for helicopter mom. This is the best and probably the most descriptive. A hovering and controlling but well-meaning parent who gets way too involved in her child's life to the point of doing things that are completely inappropriate, such as personally attending all of little Sweetie Pie's extracurricular activities, writing medium-sized Sweetie Pie school application essays, and submitting all grown Sweetie Pie's job applications. Now, funny story, there was an article in the I think it was the BYU Herald or Daily Bugle, whatever the BYU news thing is called, And it talked about how a helicopter parent went to her child's job interview, like one of their first jobs interviews, the mom, and like introduced the child, passed out the resumes or whatever. And later, um, they're like, "Hey, is the kid gonna get hired?" And the interviewer's like, "No."
Oh, are you serious? You read?
I'm serious. There
Oh
was a
my
brilliant
gosh.
article on this.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me,
yeah.
but yet it does at the same time.
It's like you're surprised because this is so ridiculous, but you're not surprised because this type of thing tends to happen way too much, especially like way too much around here, I should say.
Oh yeah.
So Lord Carrasco, what are some of the dealings that you deal with helicopter parents? Because you manage different types of property. You've managed commercial property, and currently, as far as I know, you're managing student housing and then regular apartment housing. And I take it you've dealt with helicopter parents quite a bit since moving your employment status to Happy Valley, Utah.
Yeah. The last time I was here, we discussed about the
Entitlement.
the entitlement, but how many times a month I may have
Oh
like
yes, how many times? You mentioned about 2 to 3 times, but it's at least once where you'll have a blow up.
Yeah.
Whereas before in Salt Lake, it was
Yeah.
3, maybe every 3 months, maybe.
Well, where the increase comes from is helicopter parents.
Really?
Specifically helicopter moms.
Oh,
It's that's the difference between those my experiences in Salt Lake and here.
okay. So the helicopter parents, like when they're coming around the corner, can you hear like they're going?
Oh, totally.
Like
Totally.
like you just know it's coming. You
The,
feel like
the
a bit of
trees start to sway from the wind
there's a
and
little
the
bit
dust.
of G-force and
Oh
stuff
my
going.
heck, yes. It reminds me of that phrase from Jurassic Park when what's his name says, "Hold on to your butts."
Yeah.
That's exactly how I feel at that point.
So they like to make an entrance.
Man. Yeah, because they don't like to just start off with the manager. They have to start off with the lowest person, in the office.
Okay.
So usually like the leasing agent. So they have to start off there and berate them.
Okay.
And once they've sucked every bit of life out of them and energy that they have out of them, then they move on to the assistant manager. And then they totally drain their life force. And then finally, when they can't handle it anymore, then they pass it off to the manager.
Okay.
And of course, you're just a stepping stone too. Really, who they want to talk to is the owner.
The owner of
But
they want to go straight to the top.
They do. Oh yeah. And so what they do is they have the scorched earth policy that everybody that they go through, they just, because you're dealing with mom now.
Oh, boy.
You're dealing with the ultimate power in the universe.
See, my mom would not do any of this stuff for me. Like I had an issue in community
good.
college. Even though I was working for housing, I was having an issue with them, and like it involved a lot of the hours they were giving me and a bunch of other stuff. And it was just crazy what they were demanding when I was an RA, which was it was just insane. I look back on it, I'm like, man, how did I do this? And I was telling my mom about it. She's like, well, if you want, you can come home here for the weekend and hang out here with mom and dad. And that was it. She didn't knock down the doors or start yelling at my boss and being like, hey, he's working too many hours that you're not really paying him for. I mean, none of that really happened with me. So I don't have a helicopter mom.
Yeah, I'm a parent myself. I have got kids. So I mean, I understand the whole point about, wanting to protect your kids.
Yeah.
But come on.
It's like
people.
once they're 18, I feel like they're fair game.
Well, even then, I mean, like with my own kids, and I'm not the perfect parent by any means, but like
Lord Carrasco has also been 3-year consecutive winner for Father of the Year.
Yes, thank you. They like me. They really, really like me. Yeah, no, it's like, for instance, when my kids would come a lot in, they'd come running through the door and they'd be like, so-and-so is mean to me and that, I've had to deal with parents coming after my kids over that same issue. And so I've always been like, go work it out. Turn around, you go back and you work it out. Don't come tell me. You go take care of it.
Yeah.
And my kids that's the way I've raised my kids. That's the way I was raised.
And I think that's good because it helps teach them problem-solving skills, and compromise and working out their issues rather than passing the puck to someone else.
Man, that is a huge thing here.
But yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't really happen here. It's like, Mom, Dad, they're like, I'm open, pass the puck.
Yeah,
And they pass the puck. and then like they're staring down the goalie or the manager, and then like they're going for their big win,
Oh my
trying to knock the
gosh.
puck in.
Yeah.
But most of the time, you catch the puck and you're like, no.
Yeah, if you're really good at it, you intervene.
What are some stories that you would like to share about some of these helicopter moms that you can remember in particular?
How long is your show?
We don't really have a time limit anymore now that we're not on the This
Wow.
University Life Radio.
It's
Thanks, This University Life Radio.
really, it is the one thing, and it makes my job miserable. It absolutely makes it miserable.
Wow.
And it's really interesting because students, basically are just glorified teenagers,
We'll discuss them another
Yeah.
time.
The
Next
thing about it
show.
is they tend to be, they're better than definitely the parents.
Yeah,
If
I've
there's
always
an issue, I can deal with them and we get it done, and that's the thing. I've always told them, come and talk to me. Don't yell and scream at me. Just, it starts off our communication process really bad, on a bad note. I
yeah,
understand you're angry. I get that whole scenario.
things
Just,
happen.
they do. They happen to me too in my life. But still, we're all human beings. I'm a human being, you're a human being, and we don't treat other human beings like that. We're not supposed to.
Yeah.
And so come talk to me. Tell me what the problem is. I want to fix it. It's my job. That's what I want to do.
Mhm.
And so once again, it goes back to, like I said in the other, they treat me as if I personally went out and caused this problem. But parents just, it multiplies it, and it really,
And they're only getting one side of the story.
they are only getting one side of the story. And 90% of the time, I would go 95% of the time, they do not have it accurate.
Oh man.
And it's very funny because they will come and tell me certain things. For instance, the one that sticks out in my mind the most was a woman that had called because her son had failed a cleaning check. In student housing, we do cleaning checks where we go through and make sure the apartment's clean once every other month.
Yeah, and here's another thing to really consider as well. Like at one of the places that you do it that you manage. You said, what was it? Once? How often? Once?
About once every other month. We do
Once
5 a year.
Once every other month, 5 a year. So places where I worked when I was in RA in community college, it was every week,
Yeah.
and then it was every other week, and then it was once a month when I worked at another housing place out here, and then it slowly goes down, but it could be a lot worse. So the 5 a year, I don't think it's so bad.
No, most places around here, they're either once a month or they're once a week or
Yeah.
twice a month. Ours are 5. That's like every other month. And I do that because I don't want to get involved in the kids' lives. I understand they got school, that's stressful. They've got jobs, that's stressful. They don't need to be worrying about stuff like this. But at the same time,
Place has to be clean.
it does, especially
'Cause-
when you're living with other people.
Yeah, especially other people.
Yeah. So this mother, she called and started off with my leasing agent. Actually started off with the accountant, the
Oh.
assistant to the accountant. And I mean, he really doesn't know what's
he works in the accounting stuff.
he does. And so he answered the phone, and this mother just went off on him. And I mean, it wasn't like she was yelling, and I could hear her through the receiver. And I was like maybe 5 or 6 feet away from him. And he was trying his best to say, hey, okay, let me help you, really try to resolve her concerns. And it just wasn't working. And so he said, let me pass you off. I said, here, give me the phone. So he said, let me pass you off to the manager. So I got on, and immediately when I said, hello, my name is Michael, she immediately went off on me.
Oh,
I mean, she
man.
just started screaming from the top of her lungs. I had to hold the phone away. And she goes on to tell me that her son had just failed his cleaning check. And I don't,
yeah, I know.
and my thing is, well, part of it is I don't have the papers right in front of me. I have over 400
students in this particular complex.
Yeah. And so I don't keep everything, on me. And so I didn't know exactly. I don't know whether he
or in your
failed.
head for that matter.
Yeah. Thank goodness. So I said, well, let me look at it. And she goes, I'm looking at the paper right now. I'm holding it. And I said, well, let me look. And so I looked on there. He actually passed. He didn't fail. And so I said, no, he passed. And she started screaming at me. No, he failed. I'm holding the paper right now. And I said, you're holding it in your hand? I just did the cleaning check.
I just told
like
you
an hour ago.
I just told you he passed. I'm the authority. I said he passed. Then he passed. shouldn't be an issue.
Oh my heck. And so
So now it's like she's trying to like pick a fight.
definitely.
Problem has been solved, but it's like, no, he actually failed.
She
And
goes
now
on
you're
to
gonna make him convert this back to being passed.
Yeah, my heavens. And then she goes on to tell me, I was like, he passed. I said, I am looking at the paper on our end. And I had to tell her, I said, look, we need to stop. You need to get control of yourself, because I'm not going to just let you sit there and scream and yell at me. And she says, or you'll do what? And I said, I'll hang up. I'll hang up. I don't have to sit here and take your abuse. There's no law or rule that says I have to do that.
I like how she's like, or you'll do what? Like she's expecting you to drive out to wherever she is and like get out, and all of a sudden you hear the good and the bad and the ugly theme start playing, and you both got your 6 shooters, and you're just staring each other down. A tumbleweed goes. And
that's not a bad idea. But totally,
like,
that's
what's
the way she said it. It's totally the way she said it was, or you'll do what? And I was like, or I'll hang up. And I think even that simple thing caught her attention, because she said, fine. And then and
then she started pulling the bullets out of her gun.
Totally.
Realizing there's not going to be any
she held it up and twisted it, and they fell out one by one. And
you could hear them in the background.
Yes. Clink, clink. Yeah. But she continued to just yell. And then she went on to tell me how suddenly her son has ADHD, and that, for instance, and I didn't even know about
this.
Why
does that matter?
Well, I don't know why she brought it up, other than she said that his bed was broken for a month, and he didn't sleep in his bed. He was sleeping on the floor. And I said, did he ever? And she at least said he wouldn't come in and tell you guys, because that's just the type of kid he is. Like, as if he's this angel,
Well, why is that so bad? Like, I mean, yeah, his bed's broken, or they're sleeping on the floor. I get that that's bad, but why is he not going and just saying, hey, this is busted? And he's not the type of person he is. So he's the type of person who would rather sleep on the floor than get a problem fixed.
Because I think what it was she was trying to make the excuse for him to kind of back it up with why he supposedly failed his cleaning check when he didn't, but that he broke his bed, but that he's such a perfect individual that, that he's not going to, it's not going to come in and cause problems. And
yeah,
I asked her, I said, so the fact that he has ADHD and he slept on the floor for a month and didn't come tell me, I go, how is that my fault? I asked her, how is that my problem? And she didn't explain that. She immediately went on to something else. And I said, look, I will go up there right now. And I'm like, all you have to do is talk to me and say, hey, look, I have a concern. It could have been totally good if she'd have said,
or you could have sent an email.
Yeah. Or my son just called me. It'd have been great if you wouldn't even have called me at all. And let Junior take care of it, and told your son to man up and own up and take care of it, or maybe to read the paper so that he could see that he did not fail.
But students these days, they don't read anything unless it's on social media or Wikipedia. Let's be honest.
So I go up to the room, and him and there's 2 roommates that are there. I knock, I come in. My staff, I took another member of my staff because I always like to take them so they can witness conversations. We know what that. With
safety concerns. Yeah.
That's another show right there. And so, anyways, I was just so irritated that this mother did this. So when I saw him, I said, look, somebody's mommy called me. And you could
I
totally.
like how you just flat out say it. You're like, one guy's like, someone's mommy.
Well,
like, not even mom, it's mommy.
Yeah, we're to that point. And right away I knew who it was, because in the movie The Lion King, when Simba is up there in the grass and his dad says, Simba, and you see him, he sinks down in the grass and his ears go kind of low, and that because he knows he's in trouble. This is exactly the kid looking. Just totally, you can just see that it happened, and he's like,
even hiding in the grass.
That was me. And so I went over and I took the piece of paper and I showed him on the piece of paper where he had passed.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, sorry, I read it wrong. And and he said, I'll call my mom and I'll take care of it. And I just told the kid, I said, this all could have been avoided if you'd have just come to me in the first place and said, I don't understand this. It's clearly marked on there, pass or fail.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how more clear than you get that. All of his roommates failed. So apparently
he's the only one that passed.
Well, and even on that, one of the roommates came into me and he said, I don't understand. In the conversation of that, he goes, I don't understand why I failed. And I said, really? And I said, let's look at the sheet. And so I look at the sheet and he failed on the oven. And he goes, I scrubbed the oven. And he went over and pulled up a scrub brush from the sink. And he goes, I scrubbed it with this scrub brush. I said, okay, well, let's take a look. Maybe I made a mistake. And I opened it up, and as soon as I opened it up, I could see little black pieces of food that had charred, that had fallen at the bottom. So I took my fingers, I stuck them at the back of the stove, and I just dragged it along the stove bottom, and I held up my fingers, and they were black.
Oh.
And I said, "You cleaned it?" And he goes, No, I get it. Okay, sorry.
I
And he said he spent hours scrubbing
and
it.
I would hear that all the time when I would do cleaning checks as well. When I was in RA, kids would be like, "Oh man, I stayed up all night cleaning the stove or whatever." And I finally got to the point where I just started taking the cleaning sheet and I would rub it on the stove and I would pull it out and it would be black. And they would save it in the office and I would just have whoever was working show that to the person.
That's a good idea. I'm going to start doing that from now on. I'm going to rub it on the fail page and then set it on their things and then write oven.
Yeah.
So they can see. That's a good idea.
That's what I used to do. Just because I got so tired of kids being like, "No, I cleaned it, man. I stayed up all night." And it's like, no, you didn't. You stayed up all night playing video games, nerd.
Yeah.
You didn't clean.
Well, and this mother, I thought that he said he would call her, and he did, but I thought that she would at least call back and apologize. Because I mean, she was screaming loud, and I mean,
but she could do no wrong.
No,
so.
And she never called back. You know, I would have had a lot more respect for her and the situation if she'd have called me back and said, "I apologize, I'm sorry." Nope, didn't hear back from her. Nothing,
man.
Not anything at all. And this was what really bothers me. I have a real hard time with the way some people, human beings, treat other human beings. You know, and certain individuals.
You don't watch a lot of Jerry Springer, do you?
Back in my younger day, I did.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was awesome. But it just bothers me that they're so quick to do that instead of she didn't get the facts. And like we discussed earlier, she had it completely wrong. And once because when she was talking about she was holding the paper, come to find out she wasn't holding the paper. I'm not sure
because it was in the apartment.
Yeah, there was no way. And when I explained to her, I said,
Magic.
"I'm holding it right now in my hand. He passed." Then she calmed down. But she didn't even bother to get the facts first, like to call up and say, "Hey, you know, which I wish she wouldn't have called in the first place. But if you're going to call, you know, at least get the facts and say, hey, because you're getting one side of the story, which was completely inaccurate."
Yeah. And it's like, they just come in guns blazing, ready to go. It's like, hold on to your butts, you know, buckle up, buckaroos.
That's just one. I mean, I had a father call, and they're no worse than or no better than the mothers, you know, when it comes to that situation. He was an attorney. So, you know, he called to try and act like I'm Mr. Big Attorney and I know everything. And he really didn't understand the law.
I love that when attorneys do that, and then you find out later there's something like tax attorneys.
Yeah. Well, and he may have been in this case. I don't know.
Like, they're like, "I'm an attorney." It's like tax attorney. It's like, I'm assistant general manager, assistant to the general manager.
Yes.
Or assistant regional manager. You know, that type of thing.
Yes, absolutely. The thing was, though, is he was throwing about terms like habitability. And in the state of Utah, there is a habitability law, but what it is it's this. Believe it or not, the standard is really low. Seriously, in Utah,
Utah number one for low standards.
The legislature is the one that determines it. It's not like a bunch of apartment owners or individually determine what habitability is. It's the legislature that went through and said, okay, basically, if it has 4 walls and can be secured with a secured door, with a roof that doesn't leak, and that it has running water, working electricity, and plumbing, it's considered habitable.
And heating, right?
I mean, even if the roof leaks, it still is considered habitable, according to the law in the state of Utah. And so I get these people all the time who don't know the law that come to me and say, this place is uninhabitable. I've had people come in and say, my microwave doesn't work, therefore it is uninhabitable.
Yeah.
Are you freaking kidding me?
The thing about that is, it's like, this is something you've done for years, you know, decades even. You know this stuff inside out. They know very, very little. They come in and they start spouting off.
Yeah.
You know, like they know the law. So anyway, back to this lawyer.
So he just starts throwing around the term of habitability. And I thought, you know what? I could educate him on it, because he goes, have you ever heard of the term habitability? Do you know what it means? And I'm like, yes, I know what it means. And he goes, this place is uninhabitable. And the reason it was uninhabitable, that he claims that it was uninhabitable, was because a light fixture in her bedroom was one of the screws on one of the sides. So it hadn't fallen off, wasn't hanging by wires, but even if it was, that would still be habitable. It was just one side was coming off.
Oh no.
So it was kind of hanging at a slant. There was probably a gap of an inch or so, so it was just hanging off of there.
A slanted light
Yeah,
fixture.
her door to her bedroom, not the outside of the property, but her bedroom was loose. Wasn't off, but it was loose. And that it was he was complaining about the cleaning. So it was those three things, and he claimed it was not habitable, and that he was going to turn me in to the he's named some group in Utah. Some I've never heard of them before, but some
It's like the Better Business Bureau.
yeah, something
You
like
think they're in
that.
charge, but really they're just an organization
Yeah,
that doesn't really hold any sway.
no. And so I was just and so instead of just arguing with the guy, because I thought I could sit there and argue with him. I said, look, I said, instead of arguing about habitability, let me fix it. And all he had to do, the guy was to say is like, hey, my daughter called. She said these things need to be fixed. Instead, he pitched a huff. Part of it was too that she had to change apartments because she waited till 2 weeks before the move-in day to re-sign and stay there. And so her apartment had already been rented out, so she had to move. So she wasn't happy about that, I'm sure. And neither was he. And that was one of the things
But
he
she
complained
received
about.
proper notice that she should have.
Oh yeah, way back in February.
Yeah.
And this was August. And this was 2 weeks, so it was the end of July, first part of August. I mean, that's what, 6 months?
Pretty quick.
At least. Difference that they had and they didn't. But of course, it's my fault.
Yeah.
It's my fault that light fixture was hanging a little bit side, that I purposely went in there, yanked it down for her, and I loosened her door.
You must have busy nights, going in and smashing these pipes, pulling down light fixtures, loosening doors.
You have no idea, dude. The
And
double
then you
life
go
that I
in,
do.
you finally get to bed about, 12:45, and then someone knocks on your door letting you know there's a light on in one of the cars.
Yes, absolutely. The secret life. I'm actually a ninja.
Oh.
Because at night I do it, subvertly and that and go
Under
in
the
and do it.
guise of the ebon darkness.
Yes. It's much darker at night in Utah Valley than it is everywhere else.
Do you have any other helicopter parent stories that you feel
Oh god.
inclined that you would like to share? I should.
Well,
say.
I had one. I actually had one at move-in that was the mother had come
And move-ins are a big one.
they are.
Like always. I remember move-in days. They're always terrible in Utah. Like I mentioned, like when I went to community college, nothing crazy, but Utah, they're just terrible.
Yeah. Well, this one was one that was early on with my first move out or move in, which was in August. And the mother was nice. At least she was nice. She didn't yell and scream at all. She at least would communicate to me. Um, uh, Very wealthy, from what I take, because
At least the way they acted.
they acted, the car that she drove, and just everything that I got from them.
She flew in on an actual helicopter
She did.
to be a helicopter
She
parent.
did. Just hovered right over her. Moved the luggage from the private jet over to the
the helicopter.
yes. She was at least nice, but she was just very, very overly hovering over her daughter.
Like overly protective.
Yeah, come to me. The paint job in the bedroom wasn't good enough. She wanted the carpet replaced. They actually went in and she gave me a list of 10 things that she demanded needed to be fixed. And then what she did is she emailed her or called her husband, who was in Arizona, who was, by the way, a member of a stake presidency.
Oh boy.
I was informed at the time. And
higher up in the Mormon church.
correct. And he she then went around the property, not just out in front of her daughter's apartment, but everywhere on the property, and took pictures of things that were wrong with the property.
Did she do it from her helicopter? Like getting her helicopter, it's like, and she's just like snapping all these photos. Found some stuff on the roof, a couple frisbees.
Totally. I mean, it's that like that.
Oh gosh.
Like on one of our storage units, the doors that are made out of those little storage units that have wood. One of them was bent. She took a picture of that, sent it to him.
No, another bent door.
She went around, and a lot of them, people had gotten their garbage. The people that lived in the apartment, because sometimes you don't get the whole apartment to yourself.
Yeah.
You share it with people. So individuals had put garbage out in front of their doorways. Not her apartment, mind you, and took pictures of it and sent it to her husband. He and then in turn called BYU And so BYU sent over an investigator because we're associated with
The BYU
the
housing with the
BYU
honor
housing.
code.
So they sent an investigator over, and she had listed 10 things that were wrong with the apartment. So they came and did an investigation, and they came over and they gave me a copy. It's really interesting. They found 3 things that were wrong with the apartment, and not one of them was the 10 things that they had listed.
Oh boy.
One was that there was no smoke detector in the bedroom itself, and we did not know that they're in the apartment. They're just not in the bedroom themselves.
Yeah.
And we found out the code requires that there's one in every bedroom in Provo. So
Okay.
we have remedied that. Fine. We didn't know. We installed that.
Yeah, got fixed.
Another one was a toe kick underneath one of the cabinets that had to remain open because when they built the property, they put the central the air return for the air conditioning under the cabinets. So if we closed that off, the air would not go through and it would burn up their air conditioning system. So we had to leave the toe kick off. We explained that to them. They said, "Oh, we didn't know. Put a grill on it." We went and got a grill. We put a grill over it so it still could suck in the air. It's just the way they designed the buildings for them to be.
Yeah.
So that, and there was one other thing was the Formica countertop at the end. The end cap had partially broken off, so the wood was kind of exposed. Nothing. The painting that she demanded, there was like 10 other things. Not one of them was on the list. And BYU told her, "Hey, that's habitable. That is not an issue. That's between you and them. That has nothing to do with us." And that was it. And so and the thing about it is we got all of those things resolved. But the thing I think that was so, and I'm going to use the term insulting to me. I received an email that same day from the father in Arizona. It was a racist email. I could
email.
not believe he compared our property. He talked about he's seen, that it looked like a property he would see in Mexico.
Really?
And that he's seen properties south of the border in Mexico that were in better condition than our property. Now, to me, that's extremely racist because
It seems like he's hanging out in Cancun.
yeah. And then he went on. His whole thing was the email was based on these these things about racial issues and racial tones. And the thing is, I'm Hispanic. So for me, I was kind of like, wow. And I don't offend real easy. I mean, I get offended like anybody else.
But it's time to play the race card.
But I pull out the old deck.
Yeah. And the whole time I've known you, I've known you a couple of years. I have never ever heard you play the race card.
No, and that's
This is the first time really hearing about it.
And that's the thing. And that's not me. And I wouldn't have done that. But my point is, somebody may have, or taken it as such. But I was just really surprised that it went to that level. Yeah, I was like, wow, really? That after we took care of it, we got it done. Then you send me this email. It's like the cherry on the cake. It's like, you already stabbed the knife in my back, and then now you got to twist it. I
don't know. It's not even that. It's like they stabbed the knife, they twisted it, pulled it out. You're like bleeding on the ground, and you're like dying. They come back 2 hours later, and then they just start kicking you while you're down before the ambulance can arrive. Yeah. It's that type of thing.
And we got them all resolved and everything like that. But and at least the mother was decent and good and kind. She was never. I could tell she was frustrated. But at the same time, I think when they come in, the parents expect their kids to move into, I think, the Hilton. I think that's what they expect. It's college housing. I mean, we'll cover that in another episode. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I think they kind of expect that, and so they get involved. And the thing is that they are doing, in my estimation, they are doing more damage to their children because they won't let them grow up, won't let them handle their own situations and getting involved. Look, life is not all about winning.
Yeah. Unless you're Charlie Sheen.
Or Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Either one. The thing is it's not all about winning. And sometimes, there are things that happen. But you got to let those kids, if there's a helicopter mom out there, and I know you don't think you're a helicopter mom.
Because no one's ever
a helicopter mom. But you need to let your kids grow up. You need to let them fight their own battles. And if they don't win, that's okay. You don't win at everything in life. That's the way that it is.
Yeah.
But the thing is, most people out there are honest. I would say for the most part are honest and genuine, or at least try to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But
Or try to get something at least fixed enough to where they don't have to deal with you.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, especially for a property manager, when I move somebody in, I'm starting a relationship with them. I don't want there to be problems. I mean, you're going to be living here, so I understand that this is going to be your home, and I get that. So coming to me and starting it off by yelling and screaming is not a good step to get this going. And the thing is, there are so many things that people don't take into account. A lot of people don't take into account is budget. That there are
Yeah.
budget concerns, that owners of properties set out budgets. For all of you people out there, you work at some place. All these places, your bosses, if you are a boss, you deal with a budget. You just can't just go shooting over budget. You have a budget that deals with, in my instance, carpets or furniture or, appliances or
And
things
not
like
every
that.
carpet can be replaced because a parent is
No.
upset.
And that's the thing. They'll come in and they'll see a little spot or one little stain on the carpet, and they want the whole carpet replaced when it's functional, and they walk over it.
I think what you need to do is go to their house and walk through there and be like, you need to replace this carpet.
Yeah.
And let them know.
Well, and one of the big things too, it's really interesting, is especially with the helicopter parents, is the cleaning of the apartments. I mean, they come in, they demand these things to be spotless. And there's no way to make them. I mean, cleanliness has its own levels. Everybody has their own definition
Yeah,
of
a
what
lot
is
of it
clean.
is subjective, unfortunately. And something that a lot of people don't realize, helicopter parents especially, is like when you move into an apartment, the color of paint in the room as well, and like the color of the carpet affects how it is. Like you could have some walls that are like an off-white and they'll look dirty, but in fact they will be super clean.
Yeah.
But it's just the way the paint looks or the shadows, but people automatically interpret it as dirt because
Yeah.
they don't know any better.
Yeah. And it's difficult because they expect, even though it's functional and it's fine, but because it may not look the greatest, they demand that it look, I mean, everything, like couches, you got furniture, linoleum, the carpet, furniture in the bedroom, the beds, everything. It's just like they're moving them in to a Hilton hotel, or that's what they're expecting. And this is a
Yeah.
college dorm. And one of the things that just gets me is that
And most of the time they see like a show apartment, an example beforehand of what they're getting into.
yeah, and I show them an actual unit that's lived in by people, and it's not pristine. In fact, when I go through, I point out the issues and say, look, this is what you see is what you get. It is simple living. Look at this over here, and they look at that. And most people say, hey, I appreciate that. Because there's what I don't believe in is the bait and switch.
Yeah.
You show them this pristine, nice apartment, and then you switch it out and they get something that's not. I don't believe in that. What you
And
see
you're
is
the
what
one
you
who has
get.
to work with and deal with these people
Yes,
as
absolutely.
well. So you definitely want to be honest up front.
And I know they're not the Hilton. I know that. I know that they've got imperfections and that, but this is what you're getting into. And I think sometimes they think I'm moving my child. And I understand the whole thing about you're leaving them, they're going off to school. Yeah, that's great. For me, I can't wait for that day to happen when I kick my kids to go to school. But
And for a lot of these people, they're moving them like right down the street, 30 minutes away tops.
yeah,
Some of them aren't even going
Totally.
very far.
but the thing when these helicopter parents come in when they move in and they go over the cleaning and they just say, this is horrible, this is disgusting, and they hover through the whole move-in process. It's really interesting that those same kids, because I remember, because when you make a scene, that sticks out in my mind.
Oh yeah.
So I remember that.
You always remember the troublemakers.
Yep.
Like that's how it was when I worked at housing. You remember the troublemakers, but the people who don't cause any trouble that are nice, unless they're extremely awesome, you don't really remember them.
Yeah, if I don't remember you, you're a good tenant. That's the thing. But they'll move in and they complain about the cleaning and they hover over them through the whole move-in process. So when it's time to move out, though, the parents are nowhere to be found. And it's really interesting because those same kids who had their parents, they will leave their apartments crappy and in not a clean state.
And just
But
to
where are the
sit and
parents?
wreck it.
They're not around because they don't
Yeah.
want to be bothered. They're leaving. And so they're going to leave that mess for the next person to move in. It's really, I find that so interesting. That happens a lot where when they move in, they hover over them. They complain, oh, this place is not clean. This is horrible. But when they move out, they're nowhere to be found. And their kid leaves it crappy and clean or unclean. And then I have to deal with that with the next helicopter mom that moves into the next one and that. And it's just really funny how
it's interesting you mentioned that. One of the complexes that I worked at, every year at the very end of the year, it would be the nicest, most expensive units would have the most stuff left behind. They would be completely vacated and they would be completely trashed. by the rich kids.
Yep. Well, they don't care. They're not paying for it.
Exactly.
So
And it's like you said, the helicopter parents.
that just bugs me, though.
And that's what happens. My special little snowflake of a son or daughter trashed this place, left behind all this stuff. And they're like, oh, I'm leaving it behind for the next person. It's like, no, you're not. You're just lazy.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to.
The nice thing is about that, though, provided a lot of free stuff for me. I mean,
yeah.
It's cool. I mean, I got a humidifier once. I've gotten tons of stuff.
Yeah, helicopter parents are, wow. They are,
Different breed.
Yeah, get a jet.
Get a jet.
Go from a helicopter to a jet. Just do a flyby. Just right over the top. Don't stop. Just keep going. Let your kids grow up. Let them handle it on their own. You don't help them. In fact, by getting involved, it teaches them that they can't solve their own problems. Yeah, that somebody else will always do it for them. But you think you're defending them, but you're not. You're causing more harm, and there's no doubt. And then in the process, you're making other people's lives miserable because
you're a terrible person.
Yeah. Dude, you took the words right out of my mouth.
You're a terrible person.
Really, you are. If you berate somebody like that, I don't do that because I don't like getting yelled at and being, treated that way. And I don't do that in my life. And decent human beings don't do that.
And most people don't do that because they're not terrible people.
At least the religion I belong to teaches people that you are not supposed to be, derogatory and mean and angry towards other people. I remember a couple years ago, the leader of my religion telling, specifically asking people to be kind to one another.
Yeah.
I mean, we understand things happen in life. It's not perfect. That's the whole point. And the thing is, by doing that, you add to the negativity and to the anger and to the problems of the world and all of that by doing that. But hey, you don't care. It's not you. So, it's just going to continue to go on and so forth. And people like me have to deal with it.
It's very unfortunate, but
it is. It's the worst part of the job.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be bad if individuals could communicate kindly and in a way, because like we talked about, half the time they don't have all the facts.
And they don't.
And so once they get the facts, if they would, and then they realize, then they kind of change course. But then of course they're not going to apologize because they're never wrong, and they're just going to hide their head in the sand and hope it goes away.
Now,
like when somebody texts you, and you don't want that text, so you just ignore it and, oh, I never got your, type of thing.
It said red, Michael.
Yeah.
You didn't change your iPhone settings.
No kidding.
Now I got you. I was at a college seminar a while ago, and one of the, I'm not sure how credible this is, I should say. One of the speakers there said, guys, I got good news. Helicopter parents are dying out because they're mostly baby boomers, and Gen Xers are more hands-off type of thing. And then Gen Xers are the up-and-coming generation for the kids to be parents, for parents now. Do you think that's true that these helicopter parents are dying out? And it was a baby boomer? Oh, no.
Not true.
Not true.
Not true. In fact, in my experience, it's worse.
Oh, no.
And the reason I say that is
it's more hands-on because of...
Well, I was speaking with a manager. We had a seminar the other day, a housing fair. And I was speaking with a manager. This manager has been
in the Happy Valley area
for 30 years.
Yeah.
Since the complex, I think, opened, this manager has been involved in that. And I just said, what do you do to deal with the helicopter parents? I mean, what is it? I just wanted some advice because I don't know how. It has gotten so bad.
My spray bottle's empty. I don't know what to do.
Completely. And her face just changed, and she said, it is worse this year. She goes, since August, since they moved in to now, we're talking what, 6 months?
Wow.
She said, it is the worst it has ever been in my 30 years of property management. I was like, are you kidding me? She goes, no, it is the worst. And then she started telling me all of her stories. And the complex is about the same size as my complex. And I was just in shock. I couldn't believe it because I thought she'd have some sort of magical thing to say.
With all the experience.
Yeah.
And being in Happy Valley for so long.
And it was the worst. And for me, I know I've only been at this place for a little while. since August of this year, it's been the worst for me too.
Oh man.
Than it was the year before was actually really good. It was really great. It was actually pretty good. It has been the worst. So I'm not sure what kind of crops you guys are raising out there,
Out
but
in Happy Valley,
you're
Utah.
sending the bad crops because this year this crop haul of kids is just it's horrible.
Yeah,
It's,
and I always felt that too. Like it gets worse every year, and it's just worse within the Happy Valley area than it
Yeah.
is other parts of the United States.
well, and that's what I was going to say is it's probably I mean that seminar is probably that you went to that you got those statistics at or that's probably taken into account outside of Utah because here
Yeah,
it's worse. The mentality is just really bad.
yeah, and it's crazy. And unfortunately, it's just getting worse. One other thing I wanted to bring up before we close the show, when helicopter parents come in to BYU and they start causing a fuss, one person that they have to talk with, you've mentioned what they do is they give out like a general conference talk from the Mormon Church about letting your children raise themselves, kind of thing, or being more hands off. Could you go into that just a little bit for me?
Yeah, it's
You
a
don't have to mention names or anything
no, I'm
like
not going to
that.
mention names,
And,
but
and I
but
tried to withhold names as well.
but he showed me he showed me several conference talks from the Mormon church where they talked specifically about letting your children grow up and not being helicopter moms. And then there were some cartoons on there too, some cartoons. And he said, man, when they get to me, I go here to this and I look at this and read these and that. Cause it's, and that if it has to be addressed by,
Authorities of the Mormon Church.
yeah, then there's
It's
an
gotta
issue
be
or
an
a problem.
issue.
Otherwise, they wouldn't bring it up.
Yeah.
So they definitely, and I thought it was really funny that there was, and it wasn't just one talk. Some of them were actual devotionals and firesides that were given at the Marriott Center.
Directed to
Correct.
the student.
Correct. And when he went to this place, this super secret website that they had that he showed me, it had talks in there, and that's the thing. Yeah, if you don't think you're a helicopter parent,
You probably
you are. You
Because like
probably
if you
are.
listen to this and you're like, oh, that doesn't sound like me or whatever, I only berate a little bit, then you definitely are.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's bad too because it really, the way people take it out, you, people need to control their anger.
Yeah, and it just sets a bad example and stereotype for the Happy Valley area.
Well, especially if this area is so conservative and if this area is as good as it claims to be. And I live in this area too.
Yeah, Utah County is the most one of the surveys that I looked at online is the most conservative county in Utah, and Utah is one of the most conservative states
Yeah,
there are. Some surveys said it was number one
right.
by the standards as the most conservative place in the U.S. I doubt it actually is, but
Well, it's just amazing
you get
because
the idea.
well, the golden rule. What is the golden rule?
He who has the gold makes the rules. No, I'm kidding.
I
I heard that once. Like someone said, I said the golden rule, and he goes, "He who has the gold makes the rules." And I was like, "Oh, you jerk!" And now I'm using that joke.
Yeah.
But treat others the way that you want to be treated.
Exactly. And so it's really difficult. I can't stress enough that it's hard for me to understand why one human being treats another human being that way, yells and screams at him, and it's just such anger devoted to it. I understand that we get angry and that I get angry and that, but I don't. And when I get frustration, that's where control comes in. And if we are people who believe in what we preach and what we practice, if we're the type of people that only practice or preach that on Sundays, oh man,
Yeah.
I can see where the problem would be. It should be an everyday thing, something that we do, that we treat our fellow man with dignity. Come on, people.
Exactly. There's a song, I don't know who sang the original version of it. I only know one of the covers. It's by a Perfect Circle. It's the cover. I'll provide a link to it on the website. But there's a line in there. The song's called People Are People. And there's a line in there. It says, I can't understand how would a man treat another man. And it's just talking like how it's just so derogatory. And that's kind of like what the helicopter parents do. They just very derogatory. And it's like one of those things that when you witness from the outside, you're like, or even inside, like you're in there and you're like, how could someone be like this? Before we end our show, I just want to give a shout out to my brother Ethan Smith. It's his birthday today, so happy birthday, Ethan, and thanks for listening. Anyway, that's our show. I want to thank Lord Carrasco for coming on once again.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the MCS1 show. For bi-weekly episodes on society and counterculture, subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. For regular updates, show notes, and links, head to the MCS1show.com or search AOL keyword MCS1.